I will go ahead and get started. Tonight we have with us the candidates for Ward 5 and for Ward 6. Candidates for Ward 5 include Stacie Anderson and Cathy Deschamps, and the candidate for Ward 6 is Julie Merritt. We're going to be rotating questions, and we also have already done a coin toss to be even-handed with the two candidates that are running against each other. Julie's just kind of off here by herself, so she'll be throwing into the mix as she is. I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening, participating in this candidate forum, and thank you all for coming here this evening as well. I would like to also just briefly go over the guidelines for what it is that we expect in terms of behavior and questions coming from the audience. Questions that you submit need to be questions that can be answered by all three candidates. We don't accept questions that are geared toward just one. And we also have a set of guidelines for behavior. These come from the neighborhood council, so let me just go through those very quickly. The ground rules are that we expect everyone to treat each other with respect. We expect that candidates will be recognized by the moderator before speaking, engage in active listening, make concise statements, and observe the allotted time per speaker as indicated by the timer. Our timer is right here. This is John. He'll be timing you. He has little signs he'll be showing you in terms of how much time you have left. We also expect that all participants, candidates, and audience will refrain from any disrespectful displays, no profanity, no personal attacks, no signs or candidate endorsements, no heckling, and again, we'll hold all applause until the entire forum is over and all the closing statements have been made. I also wanted to just mention that I had a clarification about what's happening with the meeting at the end of this forum, and what will be happening is that we will be officially closing this neighborhood council meeting, and once the meeting is closed, then people are free to mix and mingle and have discussions with the candidates on political things. And once the meeting is closed, you can also have literature and that sort of thing. But until the meeting is closed, we can't do any of that. Okay. So that's the clarifications. We're not going to be sitting here for a long time to do another boring meeting at the end of this. We're just going to be opening the door to let some more air and sunshine in. All right. So with that, then, let me go on to say that we also expect that the participants, the candidates, and the audience, we already did that. Okay, thank you for observing these guidelines. All right, so with that, I think we're ready to begin. We're going to have 2-minute opening statements from each of the candidates. They will then answer questions. In this case, we're going to allow 60 seconds for answers rather than 90 to be able to give more time for everyone to ask questions and get their answers in. And then at the end, we'll have 2-minute closing statements from each candidate. And I gave you a little slip there that has those things right in front of you. Okay. So today we're going to start with our opening statement with Julie. And that's going to be a little interesting with the mic. So can we move this further this way? I don't know if is it plugged in? We can. Okay, just a minute. We'll have to.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much to the Office of Neighborhoods and the Missoula League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight. My name is Julie Merritt, and I'm running for Ward 6. I'm unopposed, so I have a little easier job than the other folks that you've seen up here so far. I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. I've lived in the Ward 6 since 2003. I served on the Franklin to the Fort Neighborhood Council, both as secretary and president. During my time on the Neighborhood Council, we worked extensively with the city to get a community development block grant that paid for a lot of the sidewalks that went in along Johnson and 14th Street. Every single household along there that met the residency and income requirements had their sidewalk paid for, and some of those were very expensive projects. So that was a great goal that our neighborhood council achieved. After that, I served also on the PTA at Franklin School, and during my time there, we raised over $65,000 to put in new playground equipment at Franklin School, which I'm happy to say made the trip over to Jefferson and back to Franklin School. So I was happy to see that. I currently work as an advocate for gifted students, or I volunteer, I should say, as an advocate for gifted students. We've made several trips to the state legislature to advocate for that group. And I'm in my third year of helping to coach the robotics team here at CS Porter. So I've been heavily involved with the schools. I also work for WGM Group. And as part of my work over the past 20 years, I've worked as a water rights specialist. And one of the things that I think I bring to the City Council is experience with the city's water rights. We worked extensively for Mountain Water over the last couple of decades. And I hope that my experience will help with the city's new path as being the owner of a municipal water system. Some of the important topics for me are some that have already been touched on here tonight, and that is housing. We need to have some multiple prongs on the housing issue, and I would also like to talk about what the city can do to improve the job situation in Missoula, and climate change is also a very big, important topic for me. Thank you.
And Stacie will go next.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and have a chance to speak with all of you about some of the issues facing Missoula and Ward 5 specifically. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Office of Missoula Neighborhoods for posting this forum. My name is Stacie Anderson, and I am running to represent Ward 5 on the Missoula City Council. As a daughter of a firefighter, I was taught firsthand that public service is a noble endeavor, and that we all must show up and play our parts to make our community work. And I am running for City Council because I want to show up and make a Missoula that works for everyone. To me, that means if you want to call Missoula home, you should be able to find a job that pays a living wage. You should be able to find a safe, affordable place to live. And the street in front of that house should be plowed and pothole-free. There are so many exciting things about living here in Missoula. We have a vibrant and welcoming community, a wonderful mix of outdoor recreation, live music, Saturday farmers markets, restaurants, breweries, and distilleries. However, I do know that there are those in the community who are struggling. From talking to voters, I know that there are people who feel like they can no longer afford to live here, that wages are not keeping up with costs, and there's a sense of disconnect between voters and the people who represent them. I believe listening to constituents, respecting difference, finding realistic solutions is the most valuable quality an elected official can have. The issues that we're going to talk about tonight and debate are complex. They're not easy fixes, and it's going to take a lot of hard work, serious discussion, and creative thinking to come up with some solutions. I have some ideas that I think will help, and I'm excited to share them with you tonight. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm excited to get started and have a lively discussion.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Cathy Deschamps. I'm running for Ward 5 City Council. And I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this, and Jane Kelly for all of her hard work in making this happen, and the Neighborhood Council. To tell you a little bit about myself, I was on the South 39th Neighborhood Council for 7 years. During that time, some of the things that you'll see around the city, I was involved in. I voted in favor of painting the traffic signal boxes that you see at the corners. And we got some very, very nice artist renditions on various traffic signal boxes. I voted for the wayfinding signs downtown, although I'll admit I thought they were going to be a little larger. So I think pedestrian, great. When you're driving, it's a little hard to see the signs. But I thought that was a great idea, tourism coming to town, and they could see where the carousel was and so forth. So I did grow up here for a number of years. We lived in Target Range area, and then we moved to Lolo. And during that time, my brother and I were active in 4-H, and we had show horses. I've worked for Providence for 26 years. I started my career in Sacred Heart in Spokane, Washington, I, like many others, had to move away in order to earn enough money to come back here and to be able to buy a house. So I'm one of those. I'm also a board member of 106 Victory. It's a group that tries to educate the public about puppy mills, and member of the guitar group at United Methodist Church, and also volunteer for the ALS Association, the Evergreen chapter. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so our first question will go to Julie. And I'm going to start with the ward-specific questions first. So the question is, what do you feel is the biggest issue in your ward, and how would you approach this issue?
Hi, thank you. There are many issues in Ward 6. I know that infill and increase in density of housing in the Franklin to the Fort neighborhood is a big topic. It seems difficult to strike a balance between the need for additional housing and the quality of life issues that come as density increases. During my time on the neighborhood council, we struggled with the planned neighborhood clusters and how that impacted the neighborhoods. I think we really have to be thoughtful about the infill and how that affects the existing neighbors. At the same time, we need new housing. I think parks and trails are an important part of that process because that provides people who maybe are living in denser situations with that quality of life that helps them maintain in the neighborhood.
We go to Cathy. Yes. Do you want me to repeat it? Okay.
A couple of the issues that I think are extremely important in Ward 5. One is the safety of the children trying to get to Meadow Hill School. So they're trying to cross 39th and Reserve Street as it jogs over. And we find out that the manager of Fresh Market is actually helping getting our kids across the street safely. So I think we need to really prioritize some of the things that are within the city budget. And I think I can't imagine something that would bump the school children off the high priority. So that would be one thing that I would work for first, whether we get some bouncing lights, something else in there, but it really is kind of a section where you don't necessarily notice the kids are there, but it's very important, and it's gotten to be where people are actually rear-ending each other on 39th trying to avoid the children, so we can't have this.
Ready? Okay. I think one of the big issues facing Ward 5 is traffic and congestion. Ward 5 encompasses Miller Creek, Lower Linda Vista, and for those people who live out there, getting in and out is quite a struggle because there's one way in and one way out. And there's going to be a lot of new development going out there. So I think that expanding mountain line services out to the arterial roads in Lower Miller Creek and Linda Vista area is something that we should be looked at. Those people out there pay for it, but they don't have access to the services. The farthest over that mountain line goes is up Garrett. And if you look at the ward map, that is not nearly even halfway through the district. So I think that easing traffic congestion and making it easier for people to access mountain line services, which they're paying for, is one of the many important issues facing Ward 5.
This next question will go to Cathy first, and then we're just going to keep going in the same order. So it'll be in that direction and then starting again. So this question goes to Cathy. What economic development would you most like to see in your ward, and why?
Let's see. Ward 5 is a lot of residential. So there are, I believe there are close to 4,600 homes in Ward 5. We don't have a lot of room for any a large industry that I can think of. And the development up in Linda Vista will continue to be housing because I think that's the intent of Dwight. I would say we have already done quite a bit of good things with some of the redevelopment close by, Brook Street, Cabela's going in, Kohl's. So that is a tough question. We do have just a lot of residential area. I don't see a lot of open land right now for any type of big industry.
I think that there's an opportunity for small-scale economic development in terms of coffee shops, places to go and gather with your neighbors. Like Cathy said, Ward 5 is predominantly residential, but if you get far up into Linda Vista and Miller Creek, there's no place to go get the paper or have a cup of coffee. And so I think looking at zoning and providing that opportunity to small businesses to open up a shop in the upper, more outskirts parts of the ward would be a really exciting opportunity. That way, if you want to just get together with your neighbors or get the Sunday paper, you don't have to travel all the way down to Brooks and Reserve, that there is some place locally in your neighborhood. And I think that that would help bring the neighborhood together and give a place for everyone to come together. So.
Hi, the Ward 6 encompasses Reserve Street, which is obviously an area that is ripe for more development. What I would really like to see along Reserve Street is some more human scale development. I mean, everybody's driving by at 45 or 55 miles an hour, and the current zoning, if I understand correctly, it kind of requires large areas for parking, which perhaps attracts businesses that are all car-centered. I would like to see more services available for people who don't drive and who need to get there by foot or by bus, and have those services available. I mean, it's great. We have Rose Hours, our great neighborhood grocery store there, and the Good Food Store and Natural Grocers and some of those. It would be nice to see, as Stacie mentioned, some more smaller scale development for people that they can walk and bike to.
This next question will go to Stacie first. And this is a specific question. Bellevue Park at the corner of Paxton and 39th Street has been 30 years undeveloped. Can we get assurances that our Ward 5 and 6 candidates will work diligently to follow the master plan and get this park developed?
Yeah, I was actually out knocking doors in that neighborhood a couple weeks ago, and they were asking me about that. That it's been on the docket, but it just hasn't been prioritized, and I think that that's a missed opportunity. We definitely don't want the children in that neighborhood to have to cross 39th to be able to access a park when there's open space and the kind of infrastructure in place to develop that into a park. So yes, I would assure the voters that that would be a priority for me if elected to represent Ward 5.
Go to Julie. Oh, sorry. Bellevue isn't in my ward, but I am a big fan of developing our parkland and making sure that our kids have safe places to play. And again, as the density increases, that it becomes more and more important. Our children need safe places to play. We want them to be able to move their bodies and stay healthy. And developing the existing parkland should be a priority.
I recall driving past that park numerous times a couple of years ago where it was all dug up, and I'm not quite sure what they were doing. So it had very nice lawn. There was no playground equipment, but when they dug it up and they put in the new sidewalk, that's the wavy sidewalk, and they put everything back, they didn't reseed the grass. So what we had was a park of weeds. And so I think at the least we need to start, and if I'm Ward 5 City Council, the first goal is to get grass back in that park instead of weeds, and then go from there. So it takes baby steps. It took a long time to get playground equipment in Honeysuckle Park. I know Jeff worked on that for years. So it is kind of that continuous, constant pressure that has to happen so that we can get some of these things developed that have been maybe upended. And thank you.
This question will go first to Julie and then down one. And this is a combined question that has to do with roles. What is the most important role that you have as a city council member, and how do you see yourselves in terms of the role of the council versus the mayor and in building relationships and working relationships in those situations?
As a city council person, I figure that I will be one of a dozen members who should collaborate and bounce ideas off each other. We won't necessarily always agree. We will have to agree or disagree with respect for one another. I hope that I will be able to learn from my future colleagues. I am a little bit daunted by stepping into Marilyn Marler's shoes on the council. She's been a wonderful leader, so that's is a bit daunting of a task. But I hope that we can work together. I honestly, as not an incumbent, I'm not exactly sure what the relationship between the council and the mayor is in practice. I understand that those are two separate parts of our government. So I have a lot to learn. Thanks.
I see the city council a little differently. I feel that I would answer to the constituents of Ward 5. They do have a lot of concerns. One of them obviously is their soaring property tax, lack of snow removal. When I lived in Spokane, they had no problem clearing the streets of snow, and I was not on a major collector street. So maybe we could talk to other cities to see what their model is like and try and figure out a better way to remove the snow. The council is more of really like the legislature, and the mayor is something like the governor. So it seems to be backwards in the city right now. It seems like the mayor is making most of the decisions and the city council is just voting yes with him. I think we need some diverse opinions. We need some common sense solutions. And I think we need to work across the aisle to every party, whether it's Democrat, Independent, Republican, and try and work together instead of always just one side.
I agree that the primary function of the city council is to represent the people of their ward, as well as the greater Missoula community, because you are elected by those people who represent you represent in your ward, but the decisions that you make affect the entirety of Missoula. And I think that being accessible and communicative is very important. I made sure that in all of my literature, my email and my phone number is there, because I say, you know, you should be able to get a hold of me whenever I'm asking for the job to represent you while you're busy going about and living your lives. So I think being able to be accessible and communicative is most important. I think that, and the thing I really love about municipal government is that there is no partisan labels. So I think it kind of takes away that one barrier for working together. And I think that, you know, I've been asked, I'm not elected by the mayor, I'm elected by the people of Ward 5, but I do have to work together with the mayor and the rest of the city council to make Missoula great.
This next question will go to Cathy first. The neighborhood councils have coordinated this event. What do you think is the most valuable aspect of the neighborhood councils?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, I applaud everyone who volunteers to be on the neighborhood council, because there's no pay. You're doing it with your own time. I did it myself, and it's very rewarding. I met a lot of great people, and I've continued to meet a lot of great people as I knock on their doors going through Ward 5. I think that the neighborhood council brings the voices of the people to the city council, because sometimes city council is very busy. They're doing a lot of things. So a neighborhood council, when we had zoning issues, when we were trying to deal with some commercial encroachment onto 39th and Russell Street, then the neighborhood council took that to city, took that to the mayor, and we had discussions on zoning with that. So they're very valuable.
Sorry, I'm getting over cold. I think the neighborhood councils are great. When I decided to run for city council and wanted to educate myself on the issues that were facing my ward, the first place I went was the city neighborhoods website, and each neighborhood council has a page there where they list the issues that are concerning of the residents and that city council. So I think it's an excellent way to make sure that the voices and the concerns of the individual neighborhoods is addressed and has a way to be accessed, because Missoula does have a master plan, but each individual neighborhood has a certain feel and their own set of priorities, and making sure that they have a voice is really important, and I think it's really great that the Office of Missoula Neighborhoods provides that for them.
Yes, I'm thankful that the voters in Missoula decided many years ago that we would have neighborhood councils. It gives our citizens a chance to get involved with kind of a low threshold. You don't have to go run for office and do all the work that is involved with that to get involved and to actually make a difference. And I think that was the key for me in my experience on the neighborhood council was, at the end of it, there's sidewalks along Johnson and 14th Street that I know that me and my colleagues on the council helped make that happen. Maybe it would have happened without us, but we were a spark that got that project going. So it's great to see the real consequences of your actions in a good way by working on the city council and working with neighborhood councils.
This next question will go to Stacie first. And I'm going to combine two questions here to the interest of time. The questions are, is the acquisition of city water going to affect my property taxes? And what are some alternative sources of revenue other than property taxes?
Wow, those are two really great questions, and we have to speak very quickly to get into 30 seconds or 60 seconds. So no, the acquisition of mountain water will not affect your property taxes. The fees that you pay go into an enterprise fund that will service the debt, do maintenance, and cover all the legal costs that were incurred by acquiring that. So no, it's all in your fees, and the rates are set for hopefully the next 3 years. In terms of other revenue sources, I think that there is a lot of misconceptions around property taxes that I'm not going to go into because I only have a few seconds, so ask another question about that. But I would advocate for a local options tax. I think, yes, I just said tax, but stick with me. A local options tax is something that each municipality can go to the legislature and ask for, and it is a tax on things that predominantly tourists use. Car rentals, hotel rooms, and food and dining that you get a rebate back on your tax returns for. Ask more questions about that.
Julie?
Okay, it's a little unfair that Stacie got to answer that question first because she answered it. No, the addition of mountain water into the city system, city ownership, is not going to affect your property taxes. It was operating as a separate business before, and it will continue to operate as a separate, as a business that funds itself. So that should not have a direct impact on people's property taxes. Rates, obviously, is something that's going to have to be revisited on a regular basis as we move forward, and hopefully we will not have to raise rates very much. And just as inflation happens, that will certainly raise rates. And what was the other part of that?
Other revenue sources.
Other revenue sources. Well, I was going to say the local option sales tax too. I watched that go through the past legislative session, and I was really hoping that we would have the opportunity to do that, because I think that will give that could give municipalities more flexibility, and I'd like to see that revisited in the future.
I actually also would support a local option tax, and depending on what it goes to, I do think that we could be making some money off of tourism. I would want that money, though, obviously, to stay here and not start to get funneled off to somewhere else. So with the other thing that I would like to see is I would love to see our state legislature raise the gambling tax. I've been told by numerous people it hasn't been raised in 20 years. And we're getting half of the revenue of adjacent states. So with that, I say we have lots of casinos, so each city, if we're raising the gambling tax, each city keeps that additional revenue that's coming from that. I don't want to see it going to the general fund. I want to see that go to the cities to help out. With the acquisition of the water company, we've done a lot of research into this. I'm not convinced yet that this is going to pencil out. As I sat down with the mayor and talked to him about it, and he's told me that, okay, it was going to cost $90 million to acquire, and then another $100 million to fix the infrastructure. So if it's making $6 million a year, it's going to take 16 years to start fixing the infrastructure.
This next question will go to Julie first. How important is it for you to support union-based services and businesses?
I believe that unions are a very important part of our communities. They do a lot for the workers, and so I am fully in support of unions. I had a great conversation with Mark Anderlich recently, and just the need to maybe better understand where the organizational needs of workers are happening in our city, and I think that it could possibly be a key to improving the wages here, so that the wages that people are making are able to approach what it costs to live here. Right now, the low-wage workers in our city are not making nearly enough to be able to live in our city, and that is extremely problematic. So I'm a big supporter of unions.
I agree that we need to expand our union trades here in town. I have been endorsed by the Central Labor Council. One thought that I had is, as we move Cold Spring School over by Maloney Ranch, the Cold Spring School that's existing has numerous buildings there, and I did talk to the Missoula Public Schools about this. Since taxpayer money is used to fund most of these schools, I would like to see those buildings used to bring in training for trade jobs: plumbing, electrical, HVAC, 2-year programs. People are out on the street earning jobs that's transportable. They can go to another city. This is a win-win for everybody. Let's not let that school sit there empty or become offices. Let's use it to actually get trade jobs in this town.
Yes, I think unions are very important. I grew up in a union household. My health care was provided because my father was a city employee as a firefighter. And if you look at the arc of middle class here in America, when the unions were strongest and had their highest membership, the middle class was strong. And I think that we need to figure out ways to continue to support unions and union jobs. I think that all of us have a part to play in that. I specifically paid more for my yard signs, my walk pieces, because I have the union printed. And I think that that's important, because how can I affect change but with my dollar and the places where I choose to spend my excited that the Missoula Area Central Labor Council is coming out with their ethical guide to dining, and I think that that's going to be a really great partnership, because it's going to let you know where the good businesses are, where the good jobs are, where are employers treating their employees right, and go and spend your money at those places and support those businesses.
Sorry.
This next question will go to Cathy first. This year, the mayor and the city council pleaded with Missoulians to voice their concerns concerning the budget when there had been little perceived input from the public. What do you think about transparency in the budget process, and what will you do to improve communication between the public and the government?
I did hear Councilman John Wilkins talk about this, so I actually did go to the next budget hearing, and you only get 3 minutes to talk, so I chose the section of the budget that was going for all of the vehicle purchases. Now, when I talked to the police chief, he said he was buying the Chargers from the state because he got a better deal, but as I look through the list, it doesn't always tell you if it's a lease or if it's an outright purchase. So some of that is gray area. But I looked at that and I could see where there's room for budget to cut down on the budget a little bit. I think we're overspending on vehicles, and I think we could do a better job at that. It's something that we do at Providence, where I work with a multi-million-dollar budget, and we don't go over the budget. We're always asked to cut the budget down every year.
Okay, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. This year, the mayor and the city council pleaded with Missoulians to voice their concerns re the budget when there had been little perceived input from the public. What do you think about transparency in the budget process, and what will you do to improve communication between public and government?
Okay, great question. I think that that's one of the things that excites me most about municipal politics, is because it does really affect everyone's day-to-day lives. Potholes, sidewalks, transportation. A lot of time is spent talking about what's happening at the federal level or not happening, and at the state level. So I think that Councilwoman Caitlin Koppel had a really great idea when she was on council. She actually would hold public meetings where she would have a facilitator come in and invite the public to come in and talk about the budget, and come up and open up the books and say, okay, what makes sense to you, what doesn't, and I think that that's something that's really important, and I would definitely work to bring that back. I also think that transparency is a huge issue, because I look at voters as investors in the city of Missoula, and I think that you should very quickly be able to see where it is that your investment is going, how many potholes are being filled, how many police calls are being answered, so that you can see if where the dollars are going align with your values, and if not, then you can communicate that better with your local representative.
Obviously, the city budget is a huge, complex thing that the average Missoula citizen probably doesn't want to take the time to figure out all the ins and outs of it. I would like to see more use of technology, though, to get the word out. I know it's hard to distill those things into bullet points, and as Cathy pointed out, sometimes there's line items there that just need more explanation. And we have social media available to us to provide more communication. I've noted that some of our school board members have used Facebook and blogs to try and make the process of these government agencies more transparent. And I think just some simple things like that to help reach more people in the process. I know that it often results in reducing some of the complex issues to sound bites, but at least you can help people get to the information that they are interested in.
This next question will go to Stacie. You did the last one? No, Stacie first.
Yeah.
Yes, we're on it's your turn. Okay, I was keeping track here. I think I got it right. Okay, recently at a city council meeting, a candidate introduced a voting record for all the council members from January to September, and it turns out the council members voted 3,250 times with only 20 negative votes, 20 nay votes. Are you willing to question the proposals presented and have a willingness to vote against a proposal that your ward would not benefit from?
Well, somebody had a little bit of free time on their hands to go and get all that information. But absolutely, I mean, government doesn't work to the best of its ability if it's just a rubber stamp. I am elected to represent the people of Ward 5 and all of Missoula. And I think that my job is to make sure that we are doing the best with our resources and making sure that we're making good decisions. And I think that having an open, lively discussion and being willing to challenge the status quo is an important part of being an elected official. I think just because it's been on the books for 20 years doesn't necessarily mean it needs to happen. I think that things change, situations change, and you need to constantly be questioning where it is that the resources that you're asking from the voters go to. So yeah.
Me? It goes this way. So just past Julie.
I'm losing track.
I'm sorry. I was listening to Stacie. Can you repeat that?
Sure. The question is, the council has a record of mostly voting together and not having any negative votes. Would you be willing to?
Yes, I think one of the things that attracted me to run for municipal government is the fact that it's nonpartisan. And I sincerely hope that allows us to vote on issues on an individual issue basis and not vote with a group of people because we're like-minded. There are many issues that have come up that I agree with the mayor and the majority of our city council members on, and there are issues that I have not agreed with them on. I will, again, like to have a healthy debate, and when we disagree, be able to do so respectfully, but I will not hesitate to voice my opinion just to make things go along more smoothly for everyone.
When I was on the neighborhood council, one person that I took notice of that kind of actually woke me up to what was going on is I would listen to some of the points that were brought up by Adam Hertz. And Adam was very good at looking at the budget and the way the spending was going on and put it in words that all of us could understand. So as we have all of our urban renewal districts and that tax money goes back into those urban renewal districts, guess what happens? The rest of the city, the hills, Grant Creek, Miller Creek, Rattlesnake, Farview, South Hills, we're actually kind of picking up the slack. So even though they might talk about, well, we're not going to raise your taxes, there are people that I've talked to in Miller Creek, the average yearly property tax is $4,000 and up in Miller Creek. So I think that needs to be addressed.
And this last question, because we're almost out of time, we'll go with Julie first. And I have a combined question in the interest of time. How do you feel about TIF and how do you feel about the Complete Streets policy?
Well, that's a mouthful to try and address in 60 seconds. Yeah. And by TIF, I'm assuming the tax increment finance districts. Well, I feel like I have a lot to learn. I've understood in general how those work, and there has been a lot of great development that has happened in the city, and the idea being, we concentrate where those taxes go for a short amount of time in the hope that it pays everyone back in the long run. And so I think that that's a tool that we can continue to use. And the other part of that was complete streets. I do support the Complete Streets initiative. It certainly was something that has been talked about a lot in our neighborhood councils because of the lack of sidewalks and connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists.
We're going down the line?
Yeah, just
Okay. Regarding to Complete Streets, I think we need to approach it with common sense. I don't believe that we can put bike lanes on every street in town. I don't believe that we can put sidewalks on every street in town, because you can't retrofit a modern day city to one that was built many, many years ago. So if we just take a breath, have some common sense at what we're doing. Sharrows are working very well in Linda Vista. The street just wasn't wide enough to have separate bike lanes. In regard to TIF money, I think my issue is that it's not always fair, and here's my example. So when the mall project is going on, obviously the mall got TIF money to develop that, but then Scott's EQ loses part of their parking lot and gets $0 for that. So they lose part of their business, get zero money, 4 calls to the mayor, never answered. So I think we need to start treating businesses on the same level.
I think those are 2 hard questions to answer in 60 seconds. I think the mayor had a really good explanation of what TIF, tax increment financing districts are, and there's a lot of grant money and various things that go into it that, you know, we get federal dollars and that also go into that. And I think that they are good if they are used correctly, because they are meant to offset urban blight. And I think that any people who have been in Missoula long enough can tell you that at points in time, the mall and the surrounding areas hasn't always been one of our crown jewels. And I think that I'm excited to see the development that's going on there. I also do support the Complete Streets program. I think that we do need to have connectivity between various neighborhoods, but I also think that we need to listen to neighborhoods when they want to make a change to it. And the example of that is Linda Vista, that got repaved, got repainted. There was bike lanes on both sides. It restricted the parking to Maryland Park, and they went to their neighborhood, their representatives, and said this isn't working. The representatives took it back to the city council, and it was changed. And I think that that is an excellent example of representative democracy working the way it should.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to have our closing statements, and the order will be beginning with Julie, then going to Stacie, and then to Cathy.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you all for sitting through this and hearing what we have to say. It's a great opportunity to talk to you all, and I hope that I will have the opportunity to do a lot more listening in the future weeks and months. I wanted to, in my closing statement, address a concern that was recently raised in a letter to the editor of the Missoulian. I work for a company that has been doing business with the city of Missoula for decades. That's WGM Group. And I'm sure they will continue to do business with the city long after I'm gone. They have a long-standing reputation in the community as being involved in our community. I'm certain there's been many other council members who have faced a similar situation of working for a company that has close ties to the city. Given that our city council is made up of citizens and not professional politicians, I think that's inevitable. And if you were to try and remove all of those folks from the pool of candidates, that it would get pretty skinny. I think the key to the conflict of interest question is how I will handle that when I'm on the council. And I know that conflicts will arise. For the past 20 years, I've worked in water rights situations, and I deal with a lot of attorneys. And potential conflicts of interest are part of the game there. I feel like my experience with that will help me identify the situations where I need to recuse myself from debate and from voting. And I also hope that I can rely on my colleagues to keep me straight on that. And if I'm ever in a position where I hear from folks that I'm not honoring that avoidance of conflict, that I will listen to them and keep myself with the highest integrity. Thank you all very much for your time.
Okay. In closing, I want to represent Missoula and Ward 5 because I want a Missoula that works for everyone. I was born and raised in Montana. I'm a proud graduate of the University of Montana, where I met the two great loves of my life, my husband Mark and the community of Missoula. I fell in love with Mark because he made me laugh and he was the smartest boy I ever met. And I fell in love with Missoula because of the vibrancy and diversity in this community. I love that no matter where you came from or how much money you make, you can feel welcome here in Missoula. That's why Mark and I chose to live here and buy our home after many years of renting in Ward 5. It has such a great mix of young families, young people, as well as people who lived in their homes for 20, 30 years. I wake up every morning and consider myself incredibly lucky to live and call Missoula home. I want everyone to feel that way about Missoula. I think that we can be working together, we can be incredibly prosperous, and we can be leaders for the rest of Montana in areas of conservation, LGBTQ rights, culture. As one of my mentors said, the first rule in life is showing up. As executive director of Carol's List, I spend my day talking to women, asking them to show up and answer the call of public service. And so when I was asked to run for city council, I knew it was my time to show up and work hard to serve my community. The decisions that are made by the city council affect the lives of almost 80,000 people, and that's a responsibility that should not be taken lightly. We need leaders who are willing to work hard, listen to their constituents, and tirelessly advocate on their behalf. I'm excited and ready to show up and do that hard work, and I would be honored to have your vote.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and I always enjoy some of the lively discussion that is on my Facebook page. We all love the city, we have a great passion for it. My family roots go back 4 generations. My great-grandfather Philip lived in Frenchtown, my grandfather Hector near Alberton, my dad grew up in Alberton, and when he went to first grade, he could only speak French. So they have a lot of history there. We strive to be good stewards of the land. In Lolo, when we lived there, my mom found out that the property that we lived on was actually the campsite of the Lewis and Clark expedition. She worked very hard with historical societies to preserve that land. Dusty Deschamps assisted in the transition, and it is now a state park. I've spent all of my adult life in the service of others, mainly in the medical field. When I started, I worked at St. Brendan's Nursing Home in Spokane, Washington. One of my residents was a silent film actress. As I walked Ward 5, meeting people at their doors, I'm reminded that so many seniors here are struggling with costs of services, whether it's their property taxes, garbage service, sewer service, water, it all just goes up drastically. They get a 2% increase on their Social Security. So we can't look the other way and make them silent as well. Some of them have helped build this city, and I want to represent everyone in Ward 5, and I especially want to try and help out our seniors, because I've talked to many who said, my neighbor has just sold her house and moved away because she couldn't afford to live here anymore. I think we can do better, and that's why I want to represent Ward 5. Thank you very much.
Applause is appropriate at this point. Thank you all for being willing to be on the City Council. And I'd also like to thank the Neighborhood Council for doing this meeting. If Jane would come up here right now and adjourn the meeting, then we can just go ahead and have conversations and go on from here. Thank you all for coming.